Dai Katana, Book 1, Goblin Slayer side story. Did you guys know Goblin Slayer has side stories for the mangas? Have you read any of the Goblin Slayer mangas? Let me know in the comments below. We're talking about Book 1. We have an introduction to the Four Corners worlds, which is the world of Goblin Slayer. This is a very early part in the story. I kind of want to show this is one of the earlier panels in the show. I'm kind of blocking it, but this is the Dungeon of Death. It randomly appeared. No one knows when, no one knows why. They built a city around this place, and with the city around this place, adventurers started coming to go into the Dungeon of Death. So now we're in the Dungeon of Death. We get some pretty cool stuff that's going on. It explains the whole backstory, and then we get our group of heroes, or adventurers as they are called in the Goblin Slayer world, and it shows them with an overwhelming amount of monsters going against them. So we jump right into the action. They're going in. There's tons of fighting going on. There's tons of monsters, as you can see. So we have a whole bunch of stuff that is going on in this manga, and we get a little bit of the lore. We see them struggle, and then we end up going into the Golden Warrior, which is the name of a pub, and this takes place before they go into the dungeon, before the opening scenes, so you know there is danger going on. We're back to the peaceful time. There is only 3 members in the group now rather than 6. And we meet our scout, our warrior, and our mage. Now, from how it looks in the manga, it looks like they are all related. Some of them are cousins, some of them are second cousins, and they are all here in the pub. And there is also a girl who looks very similar to the Sword Maiden right here. But as any Goblin Slayer fan would know, this is definitely not the Sword Maiden. So we have our 3 right here. The captain, the scout, the mage. The captain is the warrior. They call him Cap. So we have all those together. And the Sword Maiden lookalike, she doesn't have a name. I believe in the short story at the end of the manga, they call her female priest. They don't call her a priestess because that's from the main thing. But she doesn't actually have it. No characters in Goblin Slayer have names except for the captain, who is Dai Katana, I think, unless that is his weapon. So we'll find out later if they actually ever call him that. But it's not in this first book, so maybe in a later Biggles Bytes, we'll find that out. So the identifier is identifying items, and 2 guys that are like, are you trying to rip us off for this identifying? And they start being really rude, and that pisses off the one known as Cap, the one we believe is Dai Katana, and he goes over there to defend her, right? So he's like, nah, this isn't going to fly. And they're talking about getting this girl into their party. So he goes over there and he starts a brawl with these guys. So they get in a fight, and he's like, you owe her an apology. And then one of the lords comes in, and he is decked out in night gear, and he says enough, and they all stop, and the fight is over. He breaks it all up, and then they ask her to join the party. She is a little hesitant. She's like, why would you want me? Everybody who heard me saw that I messed up to goblins. I'm not adventure material. And they're like, no, we want you to join our party. So she joins the party, and she's like, maybe we should go to the temple so we can find new members there. So they start going to the temple, and wouldn't you know it, as they're walking towards the temple, they come across a brothel. And the funny part here is right here at the bottom. Aren't you embarrassed by gawking? Because they're like, oh, pretty girls. And she hits her second cousin in the stomach, and it's actually pretty funny to me. I think that is a funny scene. And then they make it to the temple, and here we have what the temple looks like. This is to the trade goddess. So they have the temple here. This is only part of the page. So they go to the temple looking for another member. They find out that the temple will put party members to sleep so that they don't die until they can pay to revive them. And that's because the trade goddess doesn't do anything for free. They would go in to get money. So they have a whole bunch of people sleeping that the rest of their party just dies. So they're sleeping there forever. And in comes the next potential member to join their party. She is like Spearfighter from Goblin Slayer. So she is like a female version of him. She is carrying the 5 body bags of her teammates or her party from her trip to the dungeon, and they meet and they're like, why don't you join our party? And she's like, how do I know that you'll be good enough? Her and Cap have a fight. The nun of the trade goddess temple was like, you guys will have to pay for that. Like, you can't fight in here. And they seem to get along great. And she goes, well, you know what? If you're looking for another party member, I know a monk, and it is an insectoid monk. So we go and we meet our insectoid monk. He is going to be the 6th party member, and he doesn't think he should join them. He says, well, how do I know you guys are serious about this? And Dai Katana, also known as Cap, goes, I want to eliminate all the evil in the dungeon. So he's like, you know what? I changed my mind. I will join you. So now we have our full team here. So we have, as it says in here, it says we have 3 spellcasters, 2 warriors, a scout. Not bad at all. So they have their team ready to go. That is all the pictures I have from the manga. But they go to the Dungeon of Death, and they run into these 2 guards. And they're like, well, do we have to show you papers or anything? And they go, no, we're not here to keep you out. We're here to keep them in. And they give them 5 body bags and says, well, there's no point in giving you 6. Yeah, you guys are going to die when you go in there. And then the book ends with them standing outside of the dungeon. So volume 2, which we'll go over next week, that will be going over what is going on when they get into the dungeon. Maybe it will reach up to what is in the very first chapter where they're showing them fighting that I showed you earlier. Well, that is your Biggles Bytes, guys. Thank you so much. I'll see you next week for the Biggles Bytes. Bye.